The rhythmic hum of machines filled the pristine white room, beeping in perfect harmony like a mechanical heartbeat. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in sharp lines, casting shadows across the hospital bed. James Whitmore lay perfectly still beneath crisp sheets, his silver hair neatly combed, a blanket pulled to his chest. To the outside world, nurses, doctors, even his estranged daughter, James was unconscious. But behind those tired blue eyes, he was very much awake and listening. 2 weeks ago, James had overheard his private physician, Dr. Mason Hill, speaking quietly on the phone just outside his room. If he doesn't come out of the coma soon, the estate transfers automatically. Yes, I'll make sure the paperwork's ready. His daughter has no idea. That was the moment James decided to stay in the coma, at least on paper. The world had always seen James Whitmore as a titan of industry. He'd built Whitmore Enterprises from the ground up, a multi-million-dollar real estate empire stretching across half of California. But after a heart attack left him bedridden, everything shifted. People around him changed. Smiles became forced. Compassion started to fade. He began to wonder, who really cared? When he saw how quickly his lawyer, doctor, and even some family members began circling like vultures, he made a choice. Pretend. Pretend to be in a coma and find out who was real. He let his body go limp. He controlled his breathing. He stopped responding to reflex tests. It took effort. It was exhausting. But every day, someone said something they shouldn't around a man they thought was unconscious. And then one day, she arrived. "Hi, Mr. Whitmore," a soft voice whispered. Her name was Clara Bennett, the new nurse on rotation. Late 20s, kind eyes and always humming some old jazz tune under her breath. She treated James differently, not like a rich man or a burden, but like a person. She read to him. She adjusted his blanket carefully. She wiped his forehead when no one was looking. "Don't worry," she'd whisper. "You're not alone." He didn't know why, but James began to look forward to her shifts. One afternoon, as she tucked a blanket around him, she spoke gently. "You don't know me, but I know what it's like to feel trapped." She paused. "I hope you wake up one day, not for them, for yourself." James wanted to squeeze her hand, to blink, to speak, but he didn't. Not yet, not until he knew more. Clara was different from the others. Dr. Hill, on the other hand, was as polished as ever. A man with expensive shoes and eyes that never truly smiled. "Still nothing," he said during rounds, clicking his pen. "Not responding to stimuli. We'll run more tests, but frankly, I don't expect any change." Clara stood by the window, watching. Something in her expression changed. Disapproval? Suspicion? That night, when everyone had left, she sat beside James and whispered again, "I don't trust that doctor. Something about him feels wrong." James's heart pounded beneath his ribs. She sees it too. And then, the moment he'd been waiting for. She said something she never meant anyone to hear. "I don't know why I'm telling you this," Clara said, her voice barely audible. "But I need to say it out loud. Maybe because I know you can't respond." James lay still. She took a shaky breath. "2 years ago, my little brother died in a car accident. Hit and run. The driver, they never found him. But I did." Silence. James felt the air thicken. "I recognized the car outside a mansion when I came for a nursing interview a year ago. It was parked in the Whitmore Estate's driveway. Same dent on the bumper, same plates. I memorized them that day." James wanted to move. His heart raced. "I don't think it was you, Mr. Whitmore, but someone close to you. Someone who was driving your car that night." A long pause. "I took this job to find out the truth. And if I do, whoever it was, I won't let them walk away." She stood and left the room, leaving James in the cold silence of his own thoughts. Someone in my home, my family, killed her brother? Suddenly, the coma didn't feel like a clever trick anymore. It felt like a prison. The next morning, James's daughter, Lena Whitmore, arrived. Dressed in expensive black, she stood at the foot of the bed, her arms folded. "I don't know if you can hear me," she said, voice clipped, "but I'm here because they told me I had to come." James felt a pang in his chest. "I spent most of my life trying to impress you, to matter to you, But you always had your empire, your business. There was never room for me. James hadn't seen her in over 5 years. Their last conversation had ended in shouting and slammed doors. I'm only here because Dr. Hill says you'll be transferred to long-term care next week. I just wanted to say goodbye, or something close to it. She turned away and left. And James felt something strange. Guilt. Not for the first time. He wondered if pretending was worth it. But now with Clara's confession hanging heavy in the air, he knew he had to. Stay quiet a little longer. He needed answers. That night, Clara returned. This time she wasn't alone. The door creaked open, and James heard her whispering to someone. You said you'd help me find out, Clara murmured. A male voice replied. I'm trying, Clara. But if this goes wrong, we both lose our jobs. Dr. Hill is hiding something, Clara insisted. The records are inconsistent. I pulled some files from Mr. Whitmore's chart. Some dates don't match. And the prescriptions, someone's changing them. The man sighed. You're talking about forgery. That's a serious accusation. I know, Clara said softly. But what if this isn't just about the accident? Their voices lowered again. James caught only fragments. Transfers of ownership. Daughter's signature forged. Power of attorney. James fought to stay calm. They're stealing from me. Days passed. Clara became more guarded, more careful. She spoke less around James, though her eyes were kind. James now lived in a storm of thoughts. Grief for the daughter he pushed away, shame over the pain he may have caused, and a growing fear that the people he trusted most were destroying everything he built. But Clara's presence anchored him. Late one night, she stayed after her shift. The room was dimly lit. I know you can't hear me, she whispered, but I think about my brother every day. He was the only family I had left. I just want to know who did it, why they didn't stop, why they didn't care. Her voice cracked. I used to believe people were good, but now, I don't know. James wanted to weep. He wanted to tell her, you're not wrong, but you're not alone either. But still, he said nothing, because the truth was coming, and it would change everything. James's world had narrowed into two things, sound and stillness. Every footstep that entered the room, every voice that lowered to a hush, every emotion that cracked through in the quiet. He heard it all. Most of the staff came and went without a word. But Clara, the young nurse assigned to the night shift, was different. She talked to him. She hummed softly as she checked the monitors. She adjusted his pillow with care. She even read books aloud when she thought no one was listening. But it wasn't her words that struck James the most. It was her silence. There were moments when she would sit next to him, holding his hand, and say nothing at all. Yet somehow the air around her felt full, heavy with something unspoken. And then, one night, everything changed. Clara came in just past midnight, her scrubs wrinkled, her hair pulled back in a loose bun. She moved like she was carrying the weight of the world. After checking his vitals, she sat down in the chair beside his bed, exhaled shakily and whispered, Mr. Whitmore, I know you can't hear me, or maybe you can. I don't know, but I have to say this somewhere, and you're the only one I can trust. James's heartbeat accelerated ever so slightly, enough that the machine beeped a little faster. Clara didn't notice. I did something terrible, she said, voice trembling. And I thought I could live with it, but I can't. Not anymore. James's entire body tensed, but he didn't move a muscle. I lied on my application to work here, Clara said softly, pressing her fingers together. Not about my qualifications. I earned those. But about my past. I changed my last name because I didn't want anyone finding out who I really was. She took a breath, tears filling her eyes. My real name is Clara Monroe. My father, he was the janitor who died in this very hospital 5 years ago. No one showed up to his funeral except me. They said it was an accident, but it wasn't. It was because of negligence. She looked directly at James as though he might open his eyes. And you owned the hospital back then, didn't you? James knew the name. Daniel Monroe. He had died in a supply closet overnight after a cleaning chemical spill. It was deemed a tragic mistake. I wanted to hate you, she whispered, I applied here to get close, to find some kind of justice. But then, you weren't what I expected. Clara paused, her voice breaking. You treat everyone here like they matter. I read your files. You donate anonymously. You covered people's medical bills. I started to wonder if you even knew what happened to my dad. James wanted to speak, to tell her the truth. He remembered signing off on the legal findings back then, but he'd never reviewed them personally. He trusted the people below him, people like Dr. Hill. But now, Clara said, rising slowly, I think someone else was responsible, and I think they're still here. She looked over her shoulder toward the hallway, then leaned in close. Be careful, Mr. Whitmore. If you wake up, just be careful. And then she was gone. James lay still, his mind racing. The truth was deeper than he thought, and now he wasn't just pretending to be in a coma to protect his wealth, he was pretending to survive. It was past midnight. Rain tapped against the windows in soft, steady rhythm. The hospital was quieter than usual, and the hallway lights dimmed to save energy. Inside room 409, Clara sat beside James's motionless figure, her hand wrapped gently around his. She had been quiet all shift, distracted, eyes often far away. James, still pretending, could feel the tension in the air. Her breaths were shallow, uneven. Something was coming. He could feel it like thunder before a storm. Then finally she spoke, barely above a whisper. Mr. Whitmore, I don't know why I keep talking to you like this. You're not supposed to hear me, but maybe it helps me hear myself. James remained still. I know I should tell someone what happened. I don't know who to trust anymore. She looked around, as if to make sure no one was listening. She leaned closer. It wasn't just a car accident, the one that left my brother in a wheelchair. That's what they told the police, what the hospital wrote in the report. But that's not what happened. James's pulse jumped. He made sure his breathing stayed even. He was pushed by someone who worked here. Her voice cracked. He was only 17, just visiting me on a night shift. Dr. Hill told us he slipped, but I saw the security footage. Before it was deleted, Dr. Hill pushed him, and he smiled when he did it. A long silence. I tried to go to the board. But Dr. Hill, he's protected, powerful, and my brother, he's never walked again. Tears dropped onto the blanket. I stayed because I need the money to care for him. But every day I see Dr. Hill walk around like nothing happened, and I feel like I'm dying inside. James lay frozen, fire rising behind his still eyes. A storm had begun inside him, and it wasn't over yet. The next morning, Clara arrived for her shift with red eyes and a tight smile, like someone trying to hold herself together with string. She didn't speak to anyone and avoided Dr. Hill entirely. James listened, remembered, and planned. Now he had two reasons to stay asleep: the money and Clara. He needed to find out just how deep Dr. Hill's corruption went, and he couldn't do it as James Whitmore, the cranky old millionaire. No, he had to do it as a ghost with ears. That same afternoon, Dr. Hill came in with a forced smile and a manila envelope. Time to adjust the medication, he said aloud. But James knew better. He could hear the difference in the man's voice now, confident but not careful, arrogant. Sloppy. Dr. Hill reached for the fourth line and pushed a new syringe into the port. A little more sleep, Mr. Whitmore, he muttered. Just a little longer. James felt the cold medication snake through his veins. It didn't knock him out, but it dulled his edges. He knew now, Dr. Hill wasn't just planning for him to stay in a coma. He was planning for him never to wake up at all. That night, Clara found something. While searching the storage room for patient charts, she discovered a folder half hidden behind an old box. It was marked with a red sticker and a name she recognized instantly. Lucas Bennett, her brother. She pulled it out with trembling hands. Inside were scans, reports, incident photos, and a printed copy of an internal complaint form filed under her name, one she had never written. It stated that she had accused another nurse of pushing Lucas, that she had been reprimanded for false claims. She staggered back. They changed everything. Her hands clutched the folder to her chest as her heart pounded. That's when she knew. If she didn't do something soon, Dr. Hill would erase her too. 2 more days passed. James Whitmore could feel the edge of something drawing closer. Time, truth, maybe death. But even as the medication dulled him, his mind stayed clear. He remembered Clara's voice, her pain, her courage, and he made a choice. Tonight he would wake up, not just open his eyes, he would speak. James remained motionless, but inside his mind was racing. Clara's confession had changed everything. She hadn't just hinted at corruption, she had named names. She'd revealed that Dr. Mason Hill had been overprescribing medication to wealthy patients and manipulating diagnoses to gain power of attorney. And worst of all, he had attempted to silence Clara when she began noticing the pattern. "I never wanted to be involved," she had whispered through tears. "But when I saw your chart, Mr. Whitmore, I knew. You were never in a coma. You were being kept in one." The realization had shaken James to his core, and now he couldn't stay still anymore. He had to act, but carefully. Over the next several nights, James began subtle movements. A twitch of a finger here, a small flex of his toes when no one was looking. He needed Clara to know. He needed her to understand he was still in there. And one night, she did. The morning sunlight poured through the blinds, golden and warm. Room 409 was quiet until Clara entered and gasped. James Whitmore was sitting upright in his bed, alert, eyes open and calm. "Good morning, Clara," he said, his voice gravelly but steady. Her hands flew to her mouth. She took a trembling step.